This page is the front cover, isn't it? N64 Pro, Issue 2, Christmas 97 classic stuff. Mad for N64 is right. Big emphasis on FIFA, Road to World Cup 98 here, calling it an exclusive, with that rather serious looking chap, and the football taking up half the cover. Makes sense, footy was massive then. But the real meat and potatoes are the reviews promised inside. GoldenEye, the ultimate movie tie-in apparently, you know it. Lilac Wars, the one that came with the Rumble Pack, proper groundbreaking at the time. Mischief Makers, a 2D platformer, on the N64? Interesting choice. And Baku Bomberman, a solid lineup of reviews to get stuck into over Christmas. Plus, they're chucking in a free book of cheats and tips, always handy, and a guide for GoldenEye. And look, little teasers for Diddy Kong Racing and Yoshi's Story. Proper look back at some absolute crackers from the era. Good times! This page is all about MRC Multi-Racing Championship. Bit of an interesting racer this one, wasn't it? Looks like a promo spread here, hyping up the game. You've got the big MRC logo front and center, looking all shiny. Then they're listing some of the selling points. 8 high-performance, fully customizable vehicles. Customization was still a bit of a novelty back then. True 64-bit visual detail, well, you know, for the time. On and off-road terrain and alternative routes on every course. Sounds like they were trying to cram a lot in. Ooh, visually you've got this intense-looking bloke in sunglasses yelling his head off. I guess that's the internal combustion engine feel they were going for. And there are 3 little screenshots showing off the racing action. Different cars tearing up various tracks. Looks like your standard mid-to-late 90s racer visuals. Lots of color and slightly sea action. Robust geometry. You can see the HUD elements too. Speed, lap time, position, all the essentials. Down at the bottom you've got the logos. Ocean, Imagineer, and the Nintendo 64 logo of course. Developed by Genki 2, according to the copyright. A solid pedigree, trying to make a mark in the busy N64 racing scene. It promised a lot with the customization and varied routes, tried to stand out from the crowd. This page is the content spread, giving you the lowdown on what's inside this Christmas 1997 issue of N64 Pro. Right at the top you've got the big bold logo alongside the issue number and date. There's some cracking artwork here too, a skier looking rather intense, a footballer lifting the World Cup, giving FIFA 98 a bit of a plug, and even a cheeky little Mario head popping up. They've broken it down nicely, with sections for previews, codes, tips and guides, regulars and reviews. Looks like they're covering a good spread of games. Races like Diddy Kong Racing and San Francisco Rush, the hotly anticipated FIFA 98. Sounds like they weren't impressed with the last one, eh? Shooters like Duke Nukem and the mighty GoldenEye 007, plus platformers and sports titles. GoldenEye gets a mention for guides and a review, calling it essential. Quite right too, it was brilliant. They're even giving away a free book packed with cheats and tips for some absolute classics like Mario 64 and GoldenEye. There's a look at the Japanese Jammer show, and even a feature on gaming peripherals, which let's be honest you either loved or ignored back then. Plus, they're pushing for reader feedback, which is always good to see. A proper packed issue, getting you ready for the Christmas gaming rush with plenty of previews, help, and reviews to guide your choices. This page kicks off with The Team, where the magazine crew address the common misconception that working in the games industry is just playing games all day. Apparently they do sometimes go to the toilet, you know. It's their Christmas message, written way before the holidays, sharing their hopes and fears for the Yuletide season. We hear from different members like Alex, who hopes Diddy Kong Racing is better than Mario Kart 64, a bold statement, and fears losing his job if it snows too much. Jim hopes for a Captain Beefheart comeback, and fears England's batsmen losing their heads. Noelle is buzzing about Zelda 64, but dreads getting rubbish presents from relatives. Steve has hopes and fears tied to Man City, as any sensible person would, and Mark hopes for Tomb Raider on the N64. Lewis is looking forward to an N64 for Christmas, so he can finally beat someone at ISS Pro, among other things. A bit of a mixed bag of gaming and personal worries and wishes from the lads. The rest of the page is dominated by a cracking advert for Extreme G, which boasts acceleration so fast it hurts. Sounds like a proper speed machine and the fastest game on Earth, according to Nintendo magazine. Acclaim certainly weren't shy about promoting this one. This page kicks off with the news section, and straight away it tackles the big one. Tomb Raider will not be appearing on the N64. Apparently, Eidos and Sony have signed some sort of exclusivity deal for the PlayStation. Gutting news, especially after Mark was hoping for it last page. The article does mention Eidos is working on 5 other N64 games, but they're being tight-lipped about it. Elsewhere in the news, We hear about THQ working on a Rugrats adventure game, crikey, and beating everyone to the punch with Earthbound 64. There's chat about new peripherals shown at Shoshinkai, like the Rumble Pack and a microphone for voice commands in games like Pocket Monsters, which sounds bonkers. Nintendo is apparently dropping the price of US software for third-party titles, which is good news. We also see info on Chameleon Twist, a strange-sounding 3D platformer coming soon from Import, which involves attacking things with your tongue and doing tongue stands. Right. There's also a piece on the 64DD add-on, wondering if it'll ever actually materialize, and a slightly uncomfortable look at NFL QB Club 98, focusing on the controversy around Albert's inclusion after his legal troubles. Finally, a quick look at the Platinum Sounds Ultimate Performer Plus steering wheel, winning an award for the worst named peripheral, but apparently the force feedback, or lack thereof, it sounds like just a rumble pack in a wheel, could still make it a decent addition. Several upcoming N64 games were announced, including Art of Fighting Twins, a 3D beat-em-up, a likely 64D de-enhanced F-Zero, a sequel to Cruisin' USA, Mortal Kombat 4, and the arcade fighter BioFreaks. Nintendo is developing 2 Pocket Monster games for the N64, one for cartridge and one for the 64DD, with a focus on boosting Japanese console sales. Midway's Hockey 98 addresses the previous game's easy goalie issue, and Bandai's Tamagotchi 64 is planned for Japan, possibly more regions. Concerns were raised about the availability of piracy tools like the Doctor 64 and Wildcard 64. Other titles like Lamborghini 64 were mentioned, but without release dates. This page kicks off with some brief news, mentioning Mindscape is finally dipping into the N64, and Banpresto's working on a robot beat-em-up. There's also a column from Japan hinting at what's coming, like Capcom's first N64 game potentially being a puzzle title. A puzzle? Really? And whispers of a Ghouls and Ghosts game with a Resident Evil flavor, which sounds utterly bonkers and brilliant. They're also talking about the ridiculous cost of cartridge games, and a smart idea from Japan using flash memory cartridges to make games cheaper, suggesting it's the way forward for N64. There's a huge worldwide release schedule list here, charting out loads of upcoming titles from various publishers, if you can keep track of it all. Most importantly though, there's a big feature on Zelda 64, or should I say The Legend of Zelda something. Apparently they've scrapped the 64 part of the name, which is a bit daft, but hey. The screenshots of Link look absolutely gorgeous, and they've confirmed it'll work with the Shindu pack for rumble effects. They mention cool bits like changing viewpoints, the boomerang having multiple uses, and the intriguing possibility that Link might age or have flashbacks. It sounds absolutely incredible, whatever they end up calling it. This page is a reportage from the launch party for N64 Pro. Crikey, they threw a proper bash in Manchester's Clubland on October 2nd to celebrate the magazine's newsstand debut. It looks like things got pretty lively, with plenty of photos of people enjoying themselves. The captions are typical of these sorts of features, poking a bit of fun at the attendees. There's talk of Siamese twin girls posing reluctantly, some IDG media girls getting creative with hair, and the girl with the world's biggest hands avoiding the lens, all in good humor I hope. Salford RLFC cheerleaders apparently got quite uninhibited thanks to tequila, which sounds exactly like a late 90s club night. There's a shot of top Manchester DJ Stephen Foptagger getting the party started on the decks. The big takeaway from the banner across the middle and bottom, the free bar certainly had an effect, taking its toll on all of us. It seems like a chaotic but memorable night celebrating the magazine's arrival. This page lays out the magazine's review manifesto. Seeing as it's the very first issue, they state loud and clear that the review section is the heart of any games magazine, and they want to be transparent about how they score games. They explain different bits of their reviews, like what first impressions are basically how you feel in the first few minutes, which isn't always how it pans out, but you never get a second chance. You know the drill. They also cover the stamp of approval for games hitting 90% or higher, basically perfection in their eyes. The text breaks down their N64 score ranges, explaining what score means what, from must-buy classics above 89%, like the snippet of Wave Race 64 showing a stonking 96%, down to games best avoided unless they're in the bargain bin. Crucially, they mention the reader review, where you, the punter, get your say, making it a bit different from other mags. And finally, there's a rather imposing full-page advert for NFL Quarterback Club 98, promising authentic American football action. Take it to the extreme. Looks pretty intense, just like the game itself. The next page dives straight into a cracking little game review. Mischief Makers. Now, seeing 2D? Too bloody D? What is the world coming to? On the N64, you'd be forgiven for raising an eyebrow, but this page is quick to tell you that innovative gameplay is king here, even if it's not pushing polygons. We get introduced to the main players, Marina Lightyears, a robotic heroine assisting Professor Theo, and their rather unpleasant adversary, Commander Mission Senior. The page shows off some gameplay screenshots, focusing on the core mechanic, grabbing and shaking enemies, or clan balls as they call them, to get goodies, or just hurl them about. It highlights the varied level design and the boss fights, which sound like they need some proper clever strategies, often involving that signature grab and throw action. There's a handy diagram of the N64 controller laying out all of Marina's moves, from hovering and dashing to the all-important shake. The reviewer seems genuinely impressed, pointing out that the game's originality and clever mechanics more than compensate for the lack of 3D bells and whistles. Even the slightly surreal tone and characters, like Game's hint with her, Guti, helpful advice, get a nod. It's a solid argument for gameplay over graphical excess, and sounds like a proper good laugh. This page continues the review of Mischief Makers, confirming that while the graphics and sound might be a bit rough around the edges, honestly, don't expect miracles from a 2D game on the N64, the truly superb level design and innovative gameplay more than make up for it. The reviewer hammers home the point that it's all about the playability, especially that grab and shake mechanic. Other voices from the magazine chime in, agreeing that despite its visual simplicity, the game's charm and inventive levels really shine through. There's even a reader weighing in, perhaps a little grumpy about the 2D aspect initially, but ultimately won over. It gets a solid 87% overall, which is nothing to sniff at. Flipping to the right side, we're hit with the full might of GoldenEye 007. This is Bond, on the N64, letting you live out the action movie fantasy. It's all about directing the mission, packed with gadgets, enemies, and that revolutionary deathmatch mode that probably consumed half our teenage years. They're keen to point out features like Rumble Pack support, making you feel every shot. This one was clearly a massive deal, racking up an immense 98% score, and quite rightly so. A landmark title, no question. This page dives headfirst into the rather questionable waters of War Gods, GT Interactive's attempt to bring a Mortal Kombat-style fighter into the third dimension. Now this one takes the rather unenviable prize of potentially being the worst fighting game on the N64, according to the reviewer anyway. Despite cribbing heavily from Mortal Kombat, right down to the special moves and fatalities, War Gods seemingly falls flat on its face. The graphics and animation are panned, with characters apparently wobbling about unconvincingly, and the controls are called out as awkward. Even the attempt at 3D movement seems poorly implemented. The roster includes some truly bizarre creations, including what's described as a Ronald McDonald lookalike and a prepubescent teenage male market character, shown in several screenshots alongside others like Anubis and Pagan. The general consensus from the review, and comments from others, seems to be overwhelmingly negative, highlighting unintentional hilarity, but overall massive disappointment. It's an engine trying to make the leap to 3D, and apparently failing spectacularly. The game lands a rather dismal 38% score, which pretty much tells you everything you need to know. Top Gear Rally for the N64 receives a disappointing 67% review. The reviewer criticizes sluggish performance, problematic controls, and a poorly implemented two-player mode. While the game boasts varied courses and decent graphics, particularly rain effects, fundamental issues with speed and handling prevent it from reaching potential. The overall experience falls short of competitors like Diddy Kong Racing and Wave Race. This page dives into the world of Dark Rift, proudly proclaiming itself as the first true 3D fighting game on the N64, and visually, it certainly looks the business. The characters and backgrounds are described as superb and highly detailed, with some rather interesting designs, thankfully including an equal number of male and female fighters. You can see shots of characters like Morphix doing his blender effect thing, even taking a kicking, Aaron launching grenades, and Gore looking imposing. The game's weapon-based combat sets it apart from your typical brawlers, with fighters hacking each other with sharp objects, rather than just trading punches. However, as the reviewer notes with a weary sigh, looking good is only half the battle, isn't it? The gameplay seems to be where it falters. The controls are described as sluggish, and the response isn't quick enough for effective defense or fast attacks, leading to a bit of aimless hacking. It apparently lacks the grace of other fighting games, and falls short of the benchmark set by Tekken. Despite the impressive visuals and character design, the poor controls hold it back significantly. The overall sentiment? It's the best fighting game on the N64 right now, but that's more due to a lack of decent competition than Dark Rift being genuinely great. A depressing thought indeed. The score lands at 71%, reflecting a game that looks the part but struggles where it counts. This page tackles Baku Bomberman on the N64, Hudson's attempt to bring the classic Maze Mayhem into glorious 3D. It's an import title, setting you back a hefty £70, supports 14 players, and apparently hides some secrets. The reviewer, like many of us, was absolutely buzzing with anticipation for this N64 overhaul, especially given how brilliant the SNES original was, particularly the multiplayer. You can see screenshots showcasing the new 3D environments, from single-player areas like the Snow World, or a puzzle stage where you need to collect spheres, to multiplayer arenas, and even that rather peculiar Weird Valley level. They also show off mechanics like blowing up pots for power-ups, getting advice, though maybe only if you speak Japanese, and hints about level hazards like yawning snakes or falling rocks. However, the big red text and the review itself deliver the unfortunate news. Despite the improved one-player game and the expected 3D action, Baku Bomberman failed to blow us away. The reviewer admits their initial excitement turned to disappointment, finding it just wasn't the dynamite they'd hoped for, but rather, well, you can guess. The core idea remains running around dropping bombs, but the transition seems to have lost some of that original spark. A real shame for a game series with such a legendary multiplayer reputation. This page wraps up the review for Baku Bomberman 64, and oh dear, it sounds like a bit of a letdown compared to the glory days of the SNES. The reviewer pours out their disappointment, feeling like the move to 3D didn't capture the magic of the originals, calling it a sad statement about losing 2D playability in the rush for fancy graphics. You can see more screenshots showing different levels, including a rather ominous-looking red mountain level with lava, a snowy area, and what looks like a world select screen. There's also a shot of the game opening with some weird plot setup involving bad guys and crystals. The review mentions the single-player game having puzzles and camera struggles that make things difficult, like falling off ledges. While it looks nice and colorful, the gameplay just wasn't as gripping. The multiplayer, the real heart of Bomberman for many, apparently didn't fare much better in the 3D transition. The page also includes a score box, showing the game landed a respectable, but clearly not classic, 73% overall. Below that, there's feedback from other staff members and a reader, sharing their own thoughts, generally echoing the sentiment that it wasn't the sequel everyone was dreaming of. It seems adding the third dimension maybe just complicated a perfect formula. A review of Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey for the N64 praises the game's surprising quality, despite the lack of initial hype surrounding the hockey legend. The reviewer finds it superior to other contemporary ice hockey titles, even comparing it favorably to NBA Hang Time. The game offers both arcade-style action with 3 players per side, and a more simulation-based mode. Key features like special moves, on-ice maneuvers, and goalie-beating strategies are highlighted. The review concludes that the game successfully combines arcade fun with depth, earning a high score. This page continues the review of Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, diving deeper into the gameplay, and let me tell you, it's not your granddad's slow skate around. Controlling your players takes a bit of mastering with that N64 analog stick, but once you get the hang of those checks, power shots, and even full-blown fights, which you can switch off if you're a bit soft, it's an absolute blast. The game moves like greased lightning, which is cracking fun, though you might need a breather as it gets pretty relentless. Screenshots show off everything from massive checks and face-offs, to the goalies, who apparently aren't exactly brick walls, and even the fighting sequences. Yes, when the gloves come off, you get some simple, but effective, fisticuffs. It supports up to 4 players, which, let's be honest, is where the real chows and arguments start on the sofa. The review reckons the graphics are good, and the game moves well, feeling like a proper ice hockey experience. Compared to other sports titles around at the time, it holds up well, even if everyone was raving about ISS 64 on the PlayStation. Different reviewers chip in, generally agreeing it's a fast, fun, and surprisingly deep game, especially in multiplayer, though one felt it was maybe a touch too fast. Overall, despite a slight grumble about the pace, it lands a very respectable 84%. Not bad at all for the Great One's N64 debut. This page kicks off an overseas feature covering the JAMA Arcade Show in Japan, where developers show off their latest coin-op creations before they potentially head to console. It sounds like a proper industry shindig, featuring big names like Sega, Namco, Konami, and others, all bringing their best to Tokyo. The article highlights that unlike Western shows, JAMA is all about the arcade cabinets, running for 4 solid days of product flogging. Expect driving and fighting games galore, along with a healthy dose of that unique Japanese weirdness that often stays put. Images show off the busy show floor, various arcade machines including a rather serious-looking horse racing simulator, and a Sega booth that looks rather spiffy. There are also some rather sensationalized Jap fact sidebars sprinkled throughout, which are, well, they're certainly something. The page also features a quick look at Motocross Go from Namco, described as a solid motorbike racer with a focus on realism, featuring jumps, hazards, and plenty of other bikers to bash, sounding like a cracking arcade blast. This article showcases more Japanese arcade games. Mortal Kombat 4, with its impressive polygon count, is highlighted. Konami's Sky Devastator, a 3D chopper shooter, is described as perplexing. Sega Water Ski, an interactive skiing cabinet, might struggle on consoles. Taito's Go, a train simulator, is deemed incredibly dull. Namco's Rapid River, a paddling simulator, is intense. The next best 5 include Street Fighter, a space shooter, a racer, a sports game, and an NFL game. The article also includes sidebars on pachinko and karaoke. Overall, the article offers a glimpse into the unique and sometimes baffling world of Japanese arcade games. This page dives into the eagerly awaited Lilac Wars, known to many as Star Fox 64, and yes, the reviewer points out that slightly daft name changed straight away. After wading through some of those questionable arcade efforts from the previous page, it's a relief to land on something like this. It's hailed as a fantastic, well-executed shoot-'em-up with a cracking story, proving the N64's worth without relying on pre-rendered video. The review highlights the game's beautiful visuals, which are a massive step up from the original, and praises the technical wizardry that crammed so much onto the cartridge. It talks about the team dynamics with Fox, Falco, Peppy, and Slippy, and how looking out for them can impact your progress and unlock different paths through the Lilac system. The controls are noted as initially complex, but rewarding once mastered, with various weapons and maneuvers to get stuck into. Overall, the consensus is clear. This is a top-tier title. It gets glowing remarks for its graphics, sound, gameplay, and lastability, culminating in a stonking 91% score. It seems everyone agrees it's a brilliant, polished space shooter that breathes new life into the genre. Definitely a must-have for the N64. GoldenEye 007 for the N64 is praised as a groundbreaking first-person shooter. The reviewer calls it the best they've ever played, highlighting innovative gameplay, a compelling plot based on the film, and realistic enemy reactions. Players assume the role of Bond, complete missions at various difficulty levels, and utilize classic gadgets. Multiple weapons and environments, like a train level, are showcased. Multiplayer is also noted as adding to the game's longevity. Other reviewers and a reader echo the high praise, citing deep gameplay, stunning graphics, and a helpful cheat system. The game earns near-perfect scores, culminating in a 94% rating, solidifying its status as a must-have classic. This page is all about delving into the glorious world of cheating, tips, and uncovering hidden bits for a bunch of classic N64 games. Forget playing fair, as the mag suggests, it's more fun to bend the rules sometimes. We've got handy hints for Blast Core, like causing instant explosions, and an easy finish code for Doom 64, which sounds like it arms you to the teeth. Mario Kart 64 offers up tricks for ghostly opponents and getting a lightning-fast turbo start. There are even cheats for the notorious War Gods, though the writer seems to think they won't make the game any better. A fair assessment, perhaps. Mortal Kombat Trilogy gets some love with ways to pick arenas, and even how to play as Motaro or Shao Kahn. NBA Hangtime has a whole list of codes for silly things like huge heads and secret players, including some names you might recognize, or maybe not, depends how much time you spent on the court. Finally, Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey offers ways to unlock fighting mode, and even extra teams. It's a proper treasure trove for anyone wanting to spice up their N64 experience. There are some great screenshots too, showing off the action in Hangtime, War Gods, and Gretzky's Hockey. Good stuff for the serious N64 enthusiast. This page dives right into the thick of it, offering up part 2 of the Shadows of the Empire Challenge Point Guide. If you were scrambling for those hidden collectibles in the previous issue, this is your chance to finish the job and finally complete the game properly. The guide walks you through finding every single challenge point across levels 6 through 10. We start out back in Mos Eisley and Beggar's Canyon, navigating swoop bike jumps and hidden alleys. Then it's off to the murky depths of the Imperial City sewers, where you'll be swimming past Dianogas and searching underwater alcoves. Things get tricky in Zyza's palace, full of switches, lifts and hidden rooms, culminating in the Skyhook battle. Amusingly, the guide points out there are absolutely no challenge points on that final level. Completely pointless for the completionist, eh? There are some great screenshots showing off the levels and even a menacing shot of Boba Fett to get you in the mood for some bounty hunting. This is essential reading for anyone determined to bag every last secret in Dash Render's adventure. This guide provides essential tactics for GoldenEye 007, emphasizing stealth over gunfights. Use cover, quieter weapons like the PP7, and headshots. Crucially, destroy cameras and alarms. Specific guides for the first two missions, Arkhangelsk Dam and Facility, break down objectives step by step using numbered maps. The Dam guide covers neutralizing alarms, installing a modem, and completing the level. The Facility guide details tasks like meeting 006, destroying tanks, and reaching the lab, featuring a detailed walkthrough, including a humorous mention of taking out guards in the toilets. Clear maps, and a memorable image of Pierce Brosnan, enhance the guide's effectiveness. Darsula. This GoldenEye 007 guide covers the Arkhangelsk runway and Severnaya surface. The runway mission involves finding the plane's ignition key, escaping in a tank, and clearing the runway of enemies. The guide provides detailed steps, including tank operation, and shows a clear path on the map. Severnaya surface tasks involve disabling a communications dish, entering the base via ventilation, and potentially acquiring keys and stealing plans. Different difficulty levels require various objectives, such as destroying emplacements, obtaining safe keys, or unlocking access. The guide offers detailed instructions, a weapons list, and key locations marked on a map with screenshots. Please provide the text you would like me to summarize. Cheshire Warrington also has many musical routes. This page gives us the lowdown on Mission 5, Severnaya from GoldenEye 007, split into two parts, Surface and Bunker. Severnaya, that frosty little holiday spot. For the surface part, you've got primary objectives, like breaking comms, disabling that pesky Spetsnaz aircraft, and getting into the bunker. It even details the weapons and gadgets you'll need, like the silenced PEP-7 and the comms room key. Crucial stuff, obviously. The guide walks you through getting the key from that hut, smashing the comms console in the satellite building, and even planting a bomb on the helicopter for the hard mode objective. Proper sabotage, just what you need. Keen Gok. Then there's the bunker section, where things get tight. Objectives here include comparing staff lists, recovering CCTV tape, disabling cameras, and getting Natalia out safely. This bit is all about stealth, apparently. The guide gives you step-by-step instructions, from using the watch magnet to grab keys through cell bars, clever, to dealing with guards and cameras. Recovering that CCTV tape is key, and getting Natalia out can be a bit of a faff, bless her. It's a classic Bond mission, all about getting in, getting the info, and getting out. Good old GoldenEye, still a masterpiece. This page gives us the lowdown on Lilat Wars, or Star Fox 64 as some of you might know it, with an expert's guide. It's billed as the ultimate guide to one of the best shoot-'em-ups around, promising to show you how to reach every level, get through them, and kick the hell out of the bosses. It correctly points out that the game is non-linear, which was a big deal back then. First up, it introduces the team. Fox McCloud, the leader you control. Peppy Hare, the wise old timer. Falco Lombardi, the cocky but capable pilot. And Slippy Toad, bless him, who's apparently not the greatest pilot but useful for analyzing enemy shields. A classic lineup, eh? Then we look at the craft. Primarily the trusty R-Wing, detailing essential moves like the barrel roll and somersault, which are absolutely vital for survival, believe me. It also mentions the Landmaster tank and the Blue Marlin sub. Finally, we get into the levels, starting with the relatively easy Corneria. It gives tips for the level, including how to snag those bonus rings, and describes the boss fight against that large, well, stupid robot with a weak point on its back. Next is Meteo, the asteroid field level, and its boss, a big ship with a spinning section you need to hit. Decent advice for getting started, though the real challenges are yet to come. It's all standard procedure for the Lilat system, really. This page continues our dive into the Lilat Wars universe, giving us the expert scoop on the next set of challenges. We've got levels like the tough Sector Y, the thankfully easy Fortuna and Sector X, the underwater Aquas, the fiery Solar, the desolate Titania, and the tricky zones. It's here we properly meet the Star Wolf team. Showing up in Fortuna, those pesky mercenaries always getting in the way. The guide gives tips on how to put them down, which is always satisfying. We also get the lowdown on some memorable bosses, like the giant clam on Aquas. Yes, a giant clam, riveting. The sea captain on the oil rig in Solar, and Andros himself in his robotic form on Titania. Apparently, Slippy somehow gets you to Titania, bless his heart. There are specific pointers for each level, like using infinite torpedoes in Aquas, or how to take down the big flying saucer in Katina by shooting its hatches and power core. But perhaps the most intriguing bit is the LSD-induced Jeff Minter-esque warp zone you can find on Zonus by shooting the warp gates. Sounds like a trip. It's all about navigating the Lilat system's many paths and kicking digital backside. Good stuff for any aspiring ace pilot. This page dives deeper into the Lilat system, picking up where we left off with the expert guide to Lilat Wars. We're tackling some serious challenges here, from the train chase on Macbeth and its rather unique kite boss, to the brutal missile barrage in Sector Z. Apparently Great Fox gets hammered if you mess up there, gotta protect the old rust bucket. Then there's the space levels, like Bolse, where you need to take out force field towers before facing a rotating core, and the grand final approach through Area 6 leading up to the big bad himself. Oh, and Venom's in there too, bless him, described as easy. Depends on whether you hit that maze or not, I suppose, for those laser power-ups. The guide walks you through taking down the later bosses, including the multi-clawed thing holding Slippy, typical Slippy, the flying kite on the Macbeth train, the Bolse core, the Area 6 saucer, and the multiple forms of Andros. Yes, even the disembodied brain. Apparently you chase your old man's ghost or something. Right. There's also a handy section on special tricks, covering things like the extra mode for a proper challenge, and the medal system. Need to hit specific score targets on each level to unlock them, which means replaying levels constantly. Right then, good luck with that. This page kicks off a preview for FIFA, Road to the World Cup 98. Apparently, after the, shall we say, mixed reception to FIFA 64, EA's Canadian lot have finally got the message and are having another go. They're aiming to breathe some life back into the series, which sounds promising. The article goes quite deep actually, starting with the ancient roots of football before diving into the new game. There are some decent screenshots dotted about showing the action, plus large renders of players looking rather determined in England kits. They've even got Tottenham's David Ginola in for the motion capture, which they highlight with a few photos. There's a box detailing the game's status, 80% complete, due for Christmas, and a quick nod to previous World Cup winners. It seems like they're really trying to nail this one and capture the essence of the sport, not just slap a license on it. High hopes for this one then. The next page carries on with the FIFA 98 preview. Looks like they're really trying to nail the player likenesses this time, talking about intricate facial details, different hairstyles, and even scaled heights. They also mention players showing more emotion, like looking properly cheesed off when they get a red card. There's a nice shot of a player lifting the World Cup trophy and what looks like a FIFA museum feature, which could be interesting for history buffs. However, the bulk of this page is actually taken up by a massive advert for gameplay, a mail-order outlet flogging 64 consoles, games, and all sorts of peripherals. This page kicks off a preview feature focusing on Konami's upcoming N64 lineup, specifically highlighting some of their big Japanese hits aiming for success over here. The article covers games like Goemon, Nagano Winter Olympics, NBA in the Zone, Castlevania 3D, and Hybrid Heaven, all being developed back in Japan. First up is Goemon, the Mystical Ninja, an action-adventure game compared to none other than Mario 64. Set in ancient Japan, you'll be battling an evil musical troupe in a fully 3D environment, using different characters and solving puzzles. The screenshots show colorful levels and some quirky character designs. Then there's Nagano Winter Olympics 98, which looks like a solid sports title covering all the major events like ski jumping, bobsled, and snowboarding. It promises realistic motion-captured athletes and supports 4 players, aiming to capture the thrill of the real games right in your living room. The screenshots showcase the various events looking slick. Looks like a great way to get your winter sports fix without needing a ridiculous skin-tight outfit. Konami's upcoming N64 lineup includes NBA in the Zone 98, a realistic basketball game with motion-captured players and full seasons. GASP. Fighters Next Dream is a 3D fighter promising dynamic characters and arenas, with a character creation system. Castlevania 3D brings the classic series into 3D, continuing the Belmont Dracula conflict, featuring Alucard. Finally, Hybrid Heaven is an action RPG with a bizarre alien setting, featuring state-of-the-art animation in a purple-hued world. This page dives into the eagerly awaited Diddy Kong Racing. It's not just a simple kart racer like Mario Kart. Oh no, Rare's cooking up a multiplayer racing and adventure game here, blending action challenges with that familiar karting feel. They're boasting about new tech called real-time dynamic animation, which apparently makes everything look super realistic, with fancy reflections and detailed environments. The word is, this was even chosen over Banjo-Kazooie for the Christmas rush, which tells you how confident Nintendo and Rare are in this one. You can play through a single-player adventure with 25 levels, collecting bits and bobs and taking on bosses, or just stick to time trials and battle mode for up to 4 players split screen. There's a whole crew of new characters joining Diddy Kong, folks like Crunch the Kremling, Timber the Tiger, and even Banjo the Bear making an appearance alongside the others on the player select screen. Plus, you get to race in 3 different vehicles: a car, a hovercraft, and an aeroplane, each with unique handling and moves like barrel rolls in the plane. The graphics look pretty sharp in the screenshots, and the reviewer seems quite impressed, saying it could offer more playing time and be potentially more fun than Mario Kart 64. The music sounds like typical Rare fare, maybe a bit cringeworthy country western according to the writer, but hey, that's part of the charm, right? Looks like a solid N64 title heading our way. The next page continues the Diddy Kong Racing preview, reinforcing that this isn't some stuffy simulator, but a proper adventure racer, full of Rare's trademark charm and fancy tech like RDA for those lovely graphics and characters. You'll be exploring, battling bosses, and finding hidden bits, not just racing laps. They mention a good few more characters joining the fun, like Bumper the Badger and Tip Top the Turtle, alongside the confirmed Banjo and Conker appearances. We even get a UK price point and release window. The other side is flogging a Performer racing wheel, perfect if you want to feel like a proper racer instead of messing about with a D-pad. Says it works on 64 and other consoles, starting from about 50 quid. This page dives into San Francisco Rush, which was a right blast back in the day on the N64. It wasn't trying to be a serious sim, oh no, this was pure arcade madness tearing through the city by the bay. The preview talks about the different cars and how they handle, from easygoing beginner motors to proper extreme beasts that take some mastering. Frankly, why you'd pick the slow one is beyond me. Gotta go fast. It sounds like they even had a mode called Death Mode, if you really wanted to punish yourself for messing up. Warrington, you're not just doing laps, you're hitting jumps, finding shortcuts, and generally causing chows across those iconic San Francisco streets. The reviewer seems keen on the 2-player split screen, which was always essential for a good racer. They mention it's nearly done and expected for Christmas, promising a full review next month. Bombing round the bay indeed. This page shifts gears completely from bombing around San Francisco to the futuristic anti-gravity tracks of 064. For E0 on the SNES was an absolute classic, a benchmark for speed and that mode 7 scaling, but yeah, the single player thing was always a bit of a shame when you had mates round. Do itty. Anyway, now we're getting the proper 64-bit treatment, and the biggest talking point seems to be the sheer number of vehicles on the track. The original had what, a handful? This one's apparently cramming in up to 30 other racers trying to elbow you off the circuit. Madness! It's gone full 3D environments naturally, and the preview talks up the speed, which F-Zero always had in spades, and the promise of a silky smooth 60 frames per second, which for an N64 racer would be quite something. Miyamoto himself is apparently involved, which is always a good sign you're not going to get some half-baked port. They also touch on the potentially glorious 4-player split screen, hoping it fares better than certain other racing games Extreme G-Coff. Overall, the feeling is pretty optimistic for F-Zero making a successful leap to the next generation, promising another essential N64 racer. Let's hope it lives up to the hype. Duke Nukem 64, a Nintendo 64 port of the popular PC game, promises a fast-paced, humorous shooter experience. Building on the Doom formula, it adds new weapons, levels, and parodies of other N64 games. Multiplayer features split-screen deathmatch for up to 4 players. While potentially lacking the polish of GoldenEye, the preview suggests it will be a strong contender for N64 shooters, offering classic over-the-top action and violence. Analog stick or traditional controls are available. This page dives into a preview of Conker's Quest, another cracking title from the legendary Rare team, the same folks who brought us GoldenEye and Diddy Kong Racing. It seems they're putting the team that did Killer Instinct Gold onto this one, which is Pre-fork. An interesting choice. The big focus here is Conker the Squirrel and his chipmunk pal Berry, with a lot of chat about how their characters will actually show emotions, apparently giving you clues on what to do next. Bit of a gimmick perhaps, but sounds intriguing. Gameplay involves collecting lost presents from evil hoodlums, fighting bosses, exploring different areas like mines and western towns, and even using various vehicles and hats. The preview notes the graphics are looking rather gorgeous compared to Mario 64, but with more detail, highlighting things like wet footprints and impressive lighting. They mention the game is only about 30% done, with a Spring '98 release aimed for. Looks like Rare is aiming for something quite ambitious and full of original ideas here. And yes, there are plenty of lovely screenshots showing off the vibrant world and the main man Conker himself. A preview for Yoshi's Story, a new N64 game, reveals a 2D platforming adventure. The game features a variety of Yoshi characters, including a red and blue Yoshi, and a focus on cartoon-style graphics with dynamic zoom. Players guide Yoshi through 24 levels in 6 worlds to rescue Baby Mario. A new control system using the analog stick for attacking is highlighted, while still allowing for traditional bouncing and egg pelting. The game is 90% complete and expected soon, with further details likely on unofficial sites. This page is cracking on with a preview for Mace, the Dark Age, fresh out of the arcades and hitting the N64. Apparently the fighting genre hasn't exactly set the world alight on the N64 up to this point, but this one's looking a bit more promising according to the chap writing it. Warrington Nolsa. It's all set in the Dark Ages, with a proper fantasy vibe, and characters that wouldn't look out of place in a D&D session. The graphics are getting a nod, especially the backgrounds, which aren't just static wallpaper. You can actually interact with them, jumping on bits and even throwing your opponent onto spikes. Lovely stuff. The fighting system itself sounds pretty straightforward, a 3-button affair, but you can string together combos and special moves like fireballs. The difficulty scales up nicely as you get better. There's a whole roster of characters here, from assassins and demons to monks and sorceresses, each with their own little backstory and look. Looks like they've got a practice mode too, with a dummy helpfully labeled Kick Me on its back. Seems like it could be a decent medieval rumble on the N64. This page is a cracking subscription offer for the mag itself right then. They're clearly pulling out the big guns with some interesting CGI action here, featuring some digital athletes doing a spot of curling. Looks like they're trying to entice you to get the next 13 issues for a tidy sum of only £20, which they point out is a decent saving over the cover price. There's a form here asking for your name, address, postcode and phone number, the usual suspects. You can pay by check, PO or credit card, and there's space for your card number and expiry date. They even give you a free post address to send it all off to, so no need for a stamp if you're in the UK, handy that. Plus, there's a subs hotline number for credit card holders. Seems like a pretty straightforward way to ensure you don't miss any of the N64 goodness coming up. This page reviews third-party N64 peripherals. Memory cards are covered, with Fire's 1 MB card getting a 4/5 and Datel's 4 MB card a perfect 5/5. Controllers include the Interact Arcade Shark, 4/5, a hefty arcade stick, the SharkPad 64, 2, 4/5, praised for auto-fire and slow motion but criticized for its size, and the SuperPad 64 Plus, 2/5, deemed oddly shaped and poorly built. Finally, the Datal Action Replay cheat device, 5/5, is lauded for its ease of use and extensive cheat code access, despite its price. The next page dives into the reader feedback, or feedback as it's called, which apparently everyone demanded. Sponsored by Spook Peripherals, there's even a prize for the best letter, which is a nice touch. You've got folks writing in giving their thoughts on the first issue, praising the video review and reviews, although one chap's keen for a proper guide for Killer Instinct Gold. There's also a good bit of chat about peripherals, like the Rumble Pack and Memory Pack situation, and how the N64 pad holds up. Readers list their most wanted games, featuring big hitters like Zelda 64, GoldenEye 64, and the mythical 64DD. They also rank their favorites in a top 5, with Star Fox 64, Wave Race 64, and Mario Kart 64 making the cut. There's a rather ambitious idea for an ongoing story in the mag, which the editor admits they tried before. We see screenshots of favorites like Banjo and Kazooie and Yoshi, reminding us of the brilliant games coming or already here. One reader waxes nostalgic about the console's evolution, mentioning games like Mario 64 and Yoshi's Island 64, appreciating the multiplayer and peripherals that came along. All in all, it's a solid start to hearing what the players actually think. Reader feedback for the first issue praises the magazine's video reviews and technical details, but criticizes some aspects, including perceived Mancunian attitude and round yours section. Readers express interest in games beyond the main console, asking about other platforms and N64 gift ideas. The team defends their choices, highlighting constraints like tight publishing margins, advertisements for console accessories, and games fill the page, even including a Games Addiction Treatment Center ad. Early reader engagement demonstrates significant interest in the magazine's content and scope. RAS. This page kicks off the magazine's promised as guide to N64 games, setting itself up as the definitive word on what's worth playing. Right then, it lists games with their own ratings, alongside those from other mags, which they charmingly call ill-informed. You get a good look at the likes of GoldenEye 007, which is hailed as a proper top FPS bringing the film to life, and ISS 64, crowned the king of footy games, completely outclassing FIFA 64 by the looks of it. There are reviews for a load of other titles too, from the excellent Lilac Wars and Pilot Wings 64, to the legendary Mario Kart 64, though they note it can be a bit heavy on the item side. Then you've got games that didn't quite hit the mark, like Cruisin' USA and FIFA 64 which get slated, plus Doom 64 and Hexen, which sound a bit pants compared to what else is out there. It covers beat-em-ups like Killer Instinct Gold and Mortal Kombat Trilogy, racers like Extreme G and MRC, and unique stuff like Blast Corps and Mischief Makers. A cracking guide to sort the wheat from the chaff, showing off some great screenshots along the way, like the action in Bomberman 64 and driving a tank in Lilac Wars. This as video game guide continues with reviews of various titles. Shadows of the Empire is described as a mixed Star Wars experience, while Super Mario 64 is lauded as a classic. Tetrasphere is deemed somewhat dated, and Turok relies heavily on action. War Gods is criticized as a poor Mortal Kombat clone, but Wave Race 64 and Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey are praised for their quality. The page also features a giveaway. Official game guides plus 6 Brookside videos, a bizarre combination. Contestants must answer questions about both items to enter. The next page gives us a look ahead to the next issue on the left, promising more games than you can shake a fist at, with a picture of what looks like one of the characters from Diddy Kong racing in a cart, ready to throw down. That'll be out on the 18th of December. On the right, it's a proper showstopper, a full-page advert for Lilac Wars. Yeah, that's what we called Star Fox 64 over here, and what a game it was. This ad is all about getting you hyped for the adventure, showing Fox McCloud and the gang, Slippy, Peppy and Falco blasting through space in their R-Wings. It hits you with the launch date, October 10th, and boasts about the game featuring a ridiculous amount of real dialogue, which, let's be honest, mainly consisted of Peppy telling you to do a barrel roll. They also highlight all the cool stuff the N64 brought to the table, like the included rumble pack, stereo sound, and multiplayer action. And of course it proudly declares the N64 the fastest, most powerful games console on Earth. Big claims back then, but for Lilac Wars you could almost believe it.